I admit, I don't know much about the Middle East. I don't speak Arabic. I don't really understand the culture or Islamic traditions. I assume most Americans don't really get what's going on there. And yet, so many people are so certain that they know what to do.
If they're going to kill each other, let them kill each other. We must stop the people in Washington.
If we do not pass the authorization measure, what message will Assad get? What message will Iran receive? We have to live up to our commitments.
Now, I happen to agree with Glenn Beck on this one, but as I said, I don't know much, and Beck doesn't know that much either. So it ought to keep us humble, says the author of Your Fatwa Does Not Apply Here, Karima Ben-Un. She grew up in Algeria, and she says in this debate, neither side knows what it's talking about. So, Karina, let's start with the left. What do they get wrong?
Well, I think the most important thing to know on the ground is that in every single Muslim-majority country, people are standing up to fundamentalism. And the left is sometimes too politically correct to recognize the danger of that fundamentalism or to listen to the voices of these people who are doing that brave work. And
what do you mean they're too politically correct? Give me an example.
So an example would be that some on the left have tried to embrace things like veiling or like the imposition of the Sharia, whereas on the ground, in fact, people are challenging all of those things. And I think some on the left in the U.S. do that because some on the right have spoken out in a discriminatory way against the Sharia and against veiling.
Now, you are a creature of the left. You've worked for the Center for Constitutional Rights and Amnesty International. You say Amnesty International got very cozy with a former Guantanamo detainee who supported the Taliban and was close to supporting terrorists?
Well, Amnesty International has done a lot of wonderful work against torture and the death penalty, which I support. But I disagreed, as one sometimes does with an employer, about their close relationship with a man named Muazzam Beg. Now, Muazzam Beg was detained in Guantanamo without charge or trial, and I think it was right to oppose the way in which he was detained. But when he got out of jail, Amnesty got very cozy with him and brought him in to judge children's poetry competitions and so on. And this is a person who was a jihadi sympathizer and had been in and out of jihadi training camps. The head of the gender unit who works on women's rights at Amnesty, Geeta Sahgal, spoke out against this close relationship and was pushed out of the organization, and I believe that that was a wrong decision.
We called Amnesty International. They didn't call us back about that. The Center for Constitutional Rights decided to represent the interests of Anwar Al-Awlaki, who was on the U.S. kill list because he's a terrorist.
Again, the Center for Constitutional Rights has done some extremely important work to defend human rights in the context of the war on terror, but I disagreed with them in 2010 when they chose to represent Anwar Awlaki's interests for free. He was not a detainee. He was at large in Yemen at the time. They represented him then because he was put on a kill list by the U.S. government, and I certainly oppose assassinations. But the problem is that Awlaki himself was advocating and calling for assassinations. And in fact, his sermons were then were claimed to be the inspiration even later after his death for the Boston Marathon bombers. So what I'm saying is, yes, let's speak out against assassinations, but not do it by standing up for somebody who himself was advocating them.
Yeah, he supported assassination of women. He praised the Fort Hood killer. When we called the Center for Constitutional Rights, they just say, well, look, we were just protesting the drone strikes. What does the right wing get wrong, in your opinion?
And the right, some on the right get things wrong here as well. Some on the right have justified, for example, the use of torture in the context of the war on terror, which is just wrong and against our values, and also makes Muslims feel like they're victimized, which is something that plays into the hands of jihadis who are trying to recruit. The right wing sometimes also uses really discriminatory, racist language when they talk about Muslims, especially in the last few years. We hear some of this in the Tea Party. And again, that's just wrong. And what it does is take away the space from people like me who are both proud of their Muslim heritage and also trying to be critical of the extremists.
So your solution is government shouldn't get involved, civil society should?
Well, I think both government and civil society can play a role. The first and most important thing is we have to stop supporting fundamentalists. And I think many Americans would be surprised to learn that many in the region think that we've been doing just that, whether it's supporting the Muslim Brotherhood after they came to power in Egypt in 2011 or in Tunisia as well.
And Saudi Arabia, where women can't drive, we've called that a moderate government.